Hi everyone, and welcome to the August edition of Price Know-How Snippets. For those of you who are not so familiar with the format, this is where we try to give you some quick information at the start of the month, perhaps when you're making your purchasing decisions, before we issue our full price know-how around the middle of the month. It's just Mike and I today. Ian's on holiday, so we'll kick off as usual with Mike talking to us about exchange rates and monomers, and then I will talk to us about what that's likely to mean in terms of pricing on polymers. Over to you, Mike.
Brilliant, thanks, Catherine. So starting with oil, it's been a month in which average oil prices increased. So July came out about $80.12 per barrel on average versus a June 74.99. The ranges were pretty similar, so there's no big variation in terms of price. The minimum price in July was 74.65, the maximum 85.56. Talking about that in terms of pounds per tonne, which might be a little bit more meaningful in context of what we're going to talk about today. June, the average price was 447.07 per tonne, July 468.34. So actually the increase of £21.27. So that's an upwards movement in oil price. Moving on to exchange rates, the pound euro was almost completely stable, almost no variation. It was really a story around dollar weakness. Actually, we saw the dollar weakening both against the euro and the pound in July, and we came out of July average 129 versus 126 against the pound for June. So a little bit of a difference there, probably bringing a little bit of inflationary pressure away. Monomers, well, I'm going to talk about monomers, and then Catherine's going to talk about polymers today. So interestingly, C2 ethylene and C3 propylene were rollovers. So 20 euros per tonne for ethylene, 1,000 euros a tonne for propylene. And it's interesting that it's actually halted a 4-month trend of month-on-month decreases. So that's been the first time we've had a rollover since before April, or an increase, I should say, as well. But probably the surprise one has actually been styrene monomer. So benzene prices have dropped, contracts dropped from 818 to 800. But styrene monomer, whilst we've not got a fixed contract price, the spot market has really increased dramatically, almost by 500 euros a tonne, or about £430 a tonne. And that's been driven by a couple of outages. So LyondellBasell have a joint venture plant with Covestro producing propylene oxide and styrene monomer as a byproduct. That's been shuttered because of low demand for polyurethane products derived from propylene oxide, and also the Trinseo plant is offline at the moment. So that's estimated to have taken out about 500,000 tonnes of styrene monomer capacity. And like I say, prices have risen quickly. We need to see what happens to the contract price, but it probably will also increase by a similar amount. And Catherine will talk about polymers, but generally you see a close linkage between styrene monomer and polystyrene prices. So Catherine, over to you.
Thanks, Mike. So as Mike mentioned, feedstock prices on ethylene and propylene have rolled over. So that really would indicate perhaps that polymer prices should also roll over. However, we're seeing very strong signalling from polymer producers that they are keen to stop this erosion of margin and actually to start to improve margin from their perspective, and they're keen to push price increases through. So the indications that we've had so far are quite firm for price increases. That said, we do think that there's likely to be different fortunes for the producers depending on the particular polymer type. So things like HDPE and linear, where we've seen strong imports from Asia, we've seen imports from America based on new capacity. The arbitrage between Asia and America and Europe, the window's closing, and actually Europe is no longer such an attractive import region because prices are so low. So we're likely to see those materials start to tighten. And there's a good chance that polymer producers will succeed in pushing increases through. On materials like LDPE, where there is still quite a lot of local capacity in Europe, I think that will be much harder for polymer producers to achieve. Still, though, what we don't know is whether producers are really stating their intention that the pricing trend should reverse and that they're confident of enforcing these increases, or whether really this is just around some posturing that for September there will be increases to come. So could be an interesting battle really between the producers and polymer buyers in August, where we see really who has the strength, but certainly producers are making their intentions very clear. On polypropylene, the situation's a little bit different, and it depends very much on the grades and the polymer type, because we have started to see some tightness based on plant outages in Europe, which will certainly mean that some materials are a bit tighter than others. So again, I think producers will be trying to change the trend, trying to push increases through, but whether they succeed will really depend on the availability of the particular type and grade. On polystyrene, as Mike mentioned, we've seen dramatic increases in styrene monomer prices, and there undoubtedly we will see those transferred through to polymer prices. As Mike said, the market is likely to be short. The increase in styrene monomer price has been so significant that no doubt, I'm sure, we'll see some very, very strong increases imposed there by the polystyrene producers. So that concludes our Price Know-How snippets. As I said earlier, more information will be available mid-month. If you do need any further information in the meantime, please contact your customer service team, or indeed Mike or I, and we'd be delighted to speak to you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks, everybody. Bye.